Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Buenos dias, damas y caballeros. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sung-Hoon Kim, and I'd like to welcome you to the International Civil Aviation Organization's 40th Assembly SkyTalks. Over the next few weeks, we have 68 presentations for you. We hope that you have seen all of them or seen most of them, but if you have missed any, we would like to invite you to go on YouTube and check out the ICAO channel for more details. Following this presentation, I'd welcome you to step up to the mic and ask questions. Today is day 3, session number 6, and we continue on our Traveller Identification Programme subject. The topic today is elements of a robust traveler identification management. And to provide you with more information, please welcome our trip officer, Christiane Der Markar. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today and to share that presentation with all of you. So ICAO's leadership and work began more than 30 years ago. Historically, the MRTD program was more about a set of rules on how to manufacture and personalize machine-readable travel documents. But as the specification became more and more complete and comprehensive, we have noted that there was a switch from the transborder crime and the terrorism focus. So it has been switching to the pre-issuing and the post-issuing phases, which contain far more weaknesses. Such weaknesses like in the evidence of identity, civil registries, gaps in the integrity of document issuance, travel document fraud, border control, forensic examination, and cross-border intelligence sharing. So unless these weaknesses are fully addressed, the gaps will continue to affect and to compromise the core MRTD security. So here you can see an example on how the changes in the fraudulent method have switched in the past 10 years. So we can notice that the document fraud was slowly replaced by the identity fraud. And it's in that context that the ICAO Traveller Identification Programme strategy was endorsed by the 38th Assembly in 2013. And it was recognized as a key pillar for the aviation security and facilitation strategic objective. Its main purpose is to strengthen member states to establish citizen identities in a secure and reliable way, and to formalize the secure identities through ICAO-compliant passports and other travel documents. So the ICAO TRIP strategy is a framework, as you see, consisting of 5 interlinked elements that help member states to uniquely identify traveler, to enhance border security and facilitation by linking together all the elements of the identification management. So for example, national identification arrangements would produce evidence of identity that will support the issuance of a travel document. The technical specifications contained in document 9303, along with the security in document issuance and control, enhance the integrity and the reliability of the travel document. So basically, a travel document is only as secure and reliable as the systems and protocol that have been used to its production and issuance, and the national identification arrangement behind them. We have as a fourth element the inspection systems and tools that enable a border control authority to capture, record, and verify the data contained in the travel document. And last but not least, the interoperable applications that are about national, regional, and international application that shares the traveler's data, such as the Interpol database, API, PNR, and we're going to explore all of these in the coming presentation. So the regulatory framework behind the TRIP strategy is, of course, Annex 9 facilitation, but more specifically, Chapter 3, 8, and 9 are the one that contains the TRIP-related SARP, standards and recommended practices. Yes. Okay, so later today, maybe tomorrow, given the timeline on how the executive committee is advancing on the work program, the working paper 8 on the TRIP strategy will be discussed, and also all the TRIP items and under all the facilitation items, under Agenda 14. A new resolution will be adopted. We don't have yet the number. And also the work program for the coming 3 years will be endorsed. I would like to highlight the first one is the implementation and monitoring the implementation of the ICAO TRIP roadmap. And I would like to insist on that point because it's the most relevant for your states. So what is the ICAO TRIP roadmap? It was, as mandated by last assembly, the Secretariat was mandated to develop a TRIP roadmap for states to use as a guidance in order to implement the TRIP strategy. So its aim is to provide a target milestone and guidance without adding any additional burden on states beyond the provision that exists already in Annex 9. In order to implement the TRIP strategy, states would need a coordinated approach, both nationally and internationally. And why this is important, it's because given how the TRIP strategy involves many stakeholders, the same in your state, when you try to implement the TRIP strategy, you need to coordinate your actions and decision among all stakeholders. Like, for example, the civil registries, the Civil Aviation Authority, travel document issuance industry, the issuance authority in a state, immigration, border control, law enforcement, airline, airports, and other international stakeholders. Luckily, in Annex 9, we have a mechanism that helps states already to create such coordination, and it's a National Air Transport Facilitation Program. So it's a provision in Annex 9. So here we have all the steps and actions that the state would need for all TRIP elements to implement first. So these are the most important because they cover all TRIP elements. First of all, you need to establish a National Air Transport Facilitation Program as per Standard 8.17 and 8.19 in Annex 9. You have to complete the compliance checklist in the electronic filing of different systems and to ascertain and assess the level of compliance of your states with regards to Annex 9 SARPs. And don't forget to nominate a facilitation focal point in your Civil Aviation Authority. It's with that focal point that we will be able to dispatch and communicate all the information to stakeholders. As of today, we have 164 focal points that have been nominated. So if your state have not done so, please do. It's very important, and it's, as I said, one of the first steps to implement the TRIP strategy. So very important. So a few words on the National Air Transport Facilitation Program. It is, and I cannot repeat more than that, but it is the essential step for an ICAO TRIP implementation. Your state needs to establish the facilitation program and the committees because it's a means of coordinating the activities between the departments and agencies of the state concerned and responsible for various aspects of facilitation of civil aviation authorities. So it's very important, and we have a document 10,042, model National Air Transport Facilitation Program that provides guidance to state on how to implement standards 8.17 and 8.19. And also it provides you a model that the state can follow. Here's an extract of the ICAO TRIP roadmap. Of course, it's very small, but you can see in the bottom there is a link to the publication where you can have access to the complete view. And actually, by going on that link, you have access to plenty of documents, as I will show you at the end. Okay. So now let's go for the steps and action required for the first element of the TRIP strategy, the evidence of identity. So first of all, states would need to establish a national strategy for authenticity of identity. So this strategy will involve the tracing, linkage, and verification of identity against breeder documents. Second step is to apply these principles into the travel document issuance, meaning an applicant would go to passport to do a passport application. You need to ensure that this identity exists, that this identity is living in a community. So always verify against birth certificate, death certificate. So you need to have these principles applied to the travel document issuance, and also secure the features in the breeder document. By having security features, you decrease the number of fraud. Now, second element, the machine readable travel document, which refers to the design and manufacture of standardized machine readable travel documents. And under that element, what we would require for all states is the completion of machine readable implementation. What does it mean? It means that all states comply with standard 3.11 and that all non-machine readable passports are out of circulation. So a state only issues machine readable passport, no more non-machine readable passports. Second step is to consider if your state is ready and have all the security implemented. You have a strong civil registries, a strong evidence of identity. Move forward to implement e-passport. It's not a requirement under Annex 9. It's not mandatory. States are not obliged to do so. It's only when a state chooses to do so and when they can ensure that the travel document that will be issued is reliable and the identity could be also checked and be credible. Then compliance with MRTD specification, document 9303. It's very important to comply with the standards so that your document is interoperable. It increases the trust, the integrity of your travel document, and it makes it more easy at border control for the reading and the checking. And also to produce and issue machine-readable convention travel document. It's a standard in Annex 9, Standard 3.12. Of course, this is very small, I understand, but I just wanted to show you that view to tell you that we are still having non-machine readable passports in circulation. The last ones, not very much, will be expiring next year in 2020. And by then, we would have complied 100% with the standard 3.11. And with regard to the e-passport issuance, so we have, as of today, 135 states that are issuing e-passport. And given that high number, probably will consider a roadmap toward an e-passport standard implementation to be discussed at the next TAC TRIP and FAL panel in 2020, next year. Now, moving to third element, the document issuance and control. I would like to say that this is a very important element. If you don't have the processes and the protocols in your issuing agency, you cannot put trust in your passport, or seen from the outside, the international community will not trust your passport, even if it's an e-passport, let's say. So if they have doubt that your issuance system is not trustworthy, your passport will not be trusted as well. So this is a very important element. And here, what we recommend for states to always apply processes and protocol for document issuance and control to prevent theft, tampering, and loss. So blank documents, what to do, canceled documents, what to do with them. You need to have all these protocols in place. You need to determine vulnerabilities in issuance process and identify how you can correct them. You need to use biometrics. It's very important. Why is it important? Because it links an individual to an identity. So once the biometrics are stuck to that identity, they cannot change it. So that individual cannot go and claim another identity by your state. So this is the advantage of biometric. And of course, the last one is to issue emergency travel document. Still now, because of sometimes the need to issue an emergency travel document, you have some gaps in security, and some terrorists or bad people could use these gaps to travel from one place to another with the emergency travel document. So ICAO suggests that you issue these and follow the specification in Doc 9303 Part 8. Okay, so moving now to the inspection systems and tools. So these are all the tools that allow you to read and verify the data on your travel document. So what we suggest to states that you have always to secure reading and verify the machine readable travel document. You will hear more about it tomorrow. I'm just say a few words about it. You have to. It's not mandatory, but it's a highly recommended practice to participate in the ICAO PKD to validate the passport using the information contained in the PKD. And to implement ABCs, because it's another mean of facilitating the movement of travelers in a secure way, because you can check the biometrics and compare these biometrics to some like watch list data and compare the biometrics to the image that is taken, so facial recognition, which is a big advantage as well. So here I can show you that the ABCs have been steadily growing. We can see that they have moved from 2015 to 2019 from 179 airports to around 234 airports. ICAO will continue to encourage the expansion and use of ABCs as a means of verifying and authenticating e-passport and enhancing security in cross-border movement, and to facilitate, of course, the clearance of passengers. We have in Annex 9 recommended practices, as I was mentioning, about ABCs, so states to consider the introduction of ABC, but when they do so, they need to validate the travel document using the PKD. They have to match the biometrics against the holder and query Interpol SLTD database. So it's not only introduce them, but use them in an effective way. The PKD, as I mentioned, so tomorrow you're going to have a presentation, a full presentation on PKD. I invite you to come to hear more about it. So the PKD is a tool to share the public signature that signed the chip on an e-passport. An e-passport issuing state that doesn't share these public certificates will not enable the verification and validation of the passport at border controls, at foreign border controls. So it's essential. If you are issuing an e-passport, is to join the PKD to share your certificates. Otherwise, it's useless. Basically useless, and all the investments you have made are worthless. So this is my advice, but listen to tomorrow's presentation. Just to give you a quick status, as of today, we have 69 participants and more to come. We have 2 other in the pipeline, so maybe very soon will be 71. Now, moving to the last step, the interoperable application. So these are the global applications of technology that enable the sharing of data contained in the travel document. So probably you have heard lately, or you have heard continuously about the Interpol SLTD. Well, ICAO requests from you because it's a standard, so it's an obligation as per standard 3.10 to report on a regular basis the lost and stolen passport information, and to the extent of possible, check and query the database to see if whether you have any fraudulent travel document that is getting through your country. Another thing that you've been hearing of is API. So now we hear all about API. Well, API is a standard in Annex 9 since February 2018. So states are obliged to implement API. We have guidelines, of course, and with regards to PNR, the Security Council Resolution 2396 is pushing quite hard and is requesting from states to implement PNR. So this is still in discussion with our FAL panel, and maybe soon it will become a standard as well. So this is to consider. But what is also important is when you collect these data, you have always to link them to watch list in order to complete or to have a full check of the travel document. So here's the status of API. Today we have 67 states that have implemented API and IAPI. And by the way, it's either tomorrow or this afternoon we'll have an API presentation, API PNR presentation. And this is the status of PNR, which is a bit even more dramatic. So 26, but I believe now we are turned to 27 states. So still a lot of work to be done here. And what I would like to end with, not completely end, but in a subject that is coming now frequently is visa facilitation. It is one of the biggest challenges, but also one of the major opportunities that face the tourism sector and the growth in the economy in general. So as per UNWTO, these are the people that provided us with the number here, 53% still need a visa, where 10% of states can just get an electronic visa. Annex 9, Chapter 9 talk about electronic travel system. It's the automated process to get a visa automatically, electronically, and not the paper one. Here too, there has been a growth in number. Why it's important? Because you can link that e-visa information to your IAPI. So I invite you to hear the presentation on data passenger exchange today or tomorrow. And finally, I would like to end with some recommendation. I won't read all that or speak about every bullet point. It's for you to take with you, but I won't stress enough to say that you need to implement National Air Transport Facilitation Programme. You need to comply with ICAO standards in Annex 9. You need to produce travel documents that are compliant to Document 9303, and all the rest is quite important. You will face challenges, and that's normal, but ICAO is here to support you and guide you and assist you. So you can always come back to ICAO for any need of assistance. Also, I will leave you with some guidance material, and you have the link. We have plenty of documentation that is quite useful. And by the way, we have just issued the Trip magazine of ICAO. It's a special 75 edition. You can find it in the back of the room. And also, it's the 70th anniversary of Annex 9. So, way to celebrate. Plenty of interesting articles. Save the date for the symposium next year, 16th symposium in March, April 2020. You have the date and start planning for 2021 and 2022. And with that, I thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure to talk to such a nice audience and hope to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. If there are any questions, I would invite you to step to the mic, please, because I'm sure.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me first of all congratulate you on a very informative and very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
My question is focused on biometrics. Now, at the moment, the most popularly used biometric is fingerprint scan.
Yes.
I would just like to know whether there are any strategies, long-term strategies to switch on to more reliable biometrics such as iris scan, etc., which will play a more robust role and meet the objective in a more effective way. To switch on to other biometrics like iris scan, etc. Yeah. And the other question is now, generally, all states have, when they issue their passports, they have a mechanism to collect biometrics. Mm-hmm. And embassies also, when they issue visas, most embassies collect the biometrics of the applicants. Mm-hmm. So it's, in a way, it's a duplication. Is there any long-term strategy where these states could share these biometrics so that there is no necessity for travelers to keep, because generally biometrics are valid for 10 years, I believe, but even then, without that duplication, if the state can capture the biometrics of the citizens, if those could be shared between countries so that it will be convenient for and more efficient for the travelers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your question. So I'll answer a first one. So with regards the biometrics, so in document 9303, the photo is the mandatory biometric. So this is the only biometric that is obligatory in the travel document. Iris and fingerprint are optional, and it's still this way. So states have not yet explored the need to go to a mandatory second biometric. It might change in the future. You know that ICAO TRIP works with TAC-TRIP, the Technical Advisory Group that is made of member states. So if there is a need, some member state would come and expose that need, and then the new technology working group that is more handling the technology and the technical parts of document 9303 and the issuance of the travel document will explore and see how it's technically feasible, and that would lead to an amendment to Doc 9303. So for now, photo is mandatory, but states can still collect the one that want to implement other, like iris and fingerprints. Of course, they can do so, but it's optional. With regards to sharing the biometric, it's possible. You know, some European country, they all implement second biometric, and they have this part secured in the chip with certain certificates. They can share these special certificates between each other in order to allow another state to open that part of the chip and be sure of the validity. But that requires bilateral agreement. So if your state would like to share the biometrics with another state, you need to have bilateral agreement, because as you understand, it touches the privacy of information, and it's a quite sensitive subject. So this is what I can answer for now.
Take one more question, if you please. We're good? Thank you very much, Christiane.
Thank you.